My name's Shane. I think a lot of you know me. I've been attending the Edinburg Seventh Adventist Church for a few years. Back in 1998, when I first moved to the Valley, I belonged to the Edinburg Spanish Seventh Adventist Church. And at that time is when we had both of the churches together next to each other. And I know some of the members of the English congregation remember me from way back then. I want to talk about a prayer. I want to share with you a prayer that I made when I was a young man, when I was in college. But before I tell you much about that prayer, I want to give you a little background. I was raised in a backslidden Seventh-day Adventist home, and what that means is that both of my parents were baptized Seventh-day Adventists. However, we really didn't practice Adventism too much at the house. We practiced a form of it, I guess, but there was substance abuse going on in the home. There was alcoholism, and there was child abuse in many different forms, especially neglect. Of my mother's 7 children, none of us stayed in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. While I was in college, I went on a spiritual quest, and what happened was that I had developed alcoholism and drug addiction as a teenager. I had lived on the streets and slept under a bridge. I was eating out of dumpsters, and there was an intervention that happened, and I got into rehab and I got sober. And so by the time I was 21 years old, I was already 5 years sober. What was going on at this point in my life was that I was on this spiritual quest, not sure who God was, not sure if Jesus Christ was God, although I was now attending a Seventh-day Adventist camp meeting. It was a 10-day long event. I was out in the campground. I had a tent pitched where I was sleeping, and I had been doing a lot of research at the public library, and I was fairly confident that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. I was not so confident that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was the remnant church, but I was checking it out. In fact, I kind of suspected that it would be highly coincidental if I just happened to be born into the remnant church. My great-grandmother was a Seventh-day Adventist, so I'm a 4th-generation Adventist, but I had left the church and really did not have any strong bonds, had probably 0 bonds would be the best way to say it. Elder Brown, he was the president of the Inter-American Division, and he was preaching. He was the featured speaker that week. There was workshops, early morning workshops, mid-morning, afternoon, evening workshops. I was attending all these workshops. And you know, at these camp meetings, they have the best and the brightest Adventist speakers and teachers and professors there. So I was taking it all in. I was a sponge absorbing all of this information. I don't remember what it was that Elder Brown said, but it was at that camp meeting that I made a prayer to the Lord. Probably not your typical repenting prayer of, I am a sinner, forgive me, take me, let me be yours, I want to live for you. Probably not something like a typical sinner's prayer. Again, I was in a recovery organization and I was looking for a higher power. And I was pretty sure that Jesus Christ was the Son of God. So at this camp meeting event, I prayed to God and I says, God, I'm willing to try you, and I'm willing to try the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And if my life gets better, then I will stay. And if things don't get better, I'll go someplace else and continue my search. That was my deal. That was my prayer. And you know, as I look back upon my life, I can see everything leading up to that prayer and everything since. That prayer seems to have been the turning point in my life. I didn't make it through high school. I got my GED. I went to college and I got suspended. After that prayer, I got back in college on probation. Things went well, and eventually I graduated. You see, my religious experience, my conversion experience is not that sudden emotional experience that some people have. My conversion experience is what the psychologist William James, in his book, The Variety of Religious Experiences, what he calls the educational variety. I came to the Lord little by little, through studying, through testing. But the turning point, if I can pinpoint a point in my life, that there was a turning point where I went from a non-believer outside of salvation to a believer in a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. The turning point came at that Minnesota camp meeting. And things in my life did get better. They have not been without pain. They have not been without crisis. But I finished my bachelor's degree and I got a job in Texas. I finished my bachelor's degree in Minnesota, but I didn't get a job there. God brought me down here to Texas. And I had a family. Both of my children were born here in the valley. I raised my children here in the valley with the help of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with the help of the Seventh-day Adventist Education Department. I partnered with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with the educational system, to raise my children. I sought advice from Seventh-day Adventist pastors. A few different times I had pastors in my home giving my wife and I parenting advice so that we could raise these children as the Lord would have us raise these children. So much different than how I was raised. My friend, because of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I have been able to be the father that I never had. My children had the childhood that I never had. They have had none of the problems and difficulties that I struggled with when I was a child. And now, both of them are in college. Both of them go to church on their own. I don't have to wake them up on Sabbath morning. I don't have to hurry them off to church. In fact, if I'm sleeping in, one of them might come and tell me I need to get up and ask me if I'm planning to go to church. My children, they're teenagers, and they have teenage issues, but they have the orientation towards God. They have a relationship with God that I did not have when I was that age. I did not think I would ever go back to high school. I had no ambition to graduate high school. I just wanted to be an auto mechanic. That was my ambition. And because of that prayer, God took control of my life. I submitted to Him, but God took control of my life. And I wound up getting my bachelor's degree and coming down here. And we had some crises. My family has had crises. And those crises have drawn us closer to God. Crises tend to make or break us. They either destroy us or they make us strong. And what I have learned, my experience, is to go to God in prayer. When things get difficult for me, I get on my knees and I ask Him, God, what would you have me do? That eventually led to me going to graduate school at the Universidad de Montemorelos. What a wonderful experience that was. Getting my master's degree there in family counseling, which is really like a theological degree because the Spirit of Prophecy was our textbooks primarily. And it is all a result of this prayer that I made when I was a young child, saying to God, I will give you a chance. I didn't realize it at the time, but it is much like the verse in Malachi where God invites us to try him when he is telling us to pay our tithe and to try him and see if he does not pour out blessings upon us, if he does not open up the heavens and give us more blessings than we can handle. And so I think when I made that prayer and I told God I was going to give him a try, I think God's attitude was, bring it on. I think God was up to the challenge, and God has delivered for me. I am grateful to be a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I am grateful for all the support that the Seventh-day Adventist Church gives us. I am grateful that the Seventh-day Adventist Church, specifically the Edinburg Seventh-day Adventist Church, has invited us to participate in activities and responsibilities. I am very grateful for them reaching out to my family, reaching out to my children, making us feel a part of. And I look forward to many years with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And if not being in the church until I die, at least being in the church until Jesus comes and takes us all home.